You've been lied to about what productivity actually looks like. For the last 10 years, the advice has been exactly the same. Shut the door, turn off your phone, go into a cave and focus for 4 hours straight. They call it deep work. And honestly, it's ruining your ability to get things done. You've felt this struggle yourself. You sit down to do the important work. You block out the time on your calendar, you brew the perfect cup of coffee, and then you just sit there, staring at a blinking cursor. The pressure to produce something deep and perfect freezes you completely. You aren't producing a masterpiece, you're producing anxiety. And while you're stuck in that mental paralysis, someone else is lapping you. Someone with half your talent is getting twice your results. Not because they focused harder, but because they stopped trying to focus at all. Here's the reality nobody wants to admit. Deep work was designed for a world where generating ideas was the bottleneck, a scarcity mindset. It assumes creating a first draft is expensive, painful, slow. But you don't live in that world anymore. The cost of iteration has dropped to zero. You've entered the era of abundance. And in abundance, the winner isn't the person who thinks deepest, it's the person who loops fastest. I call this rapid looping, and it completely inverts the productivity hierarchy. Think about a film director. They don't stand in front of the camera trying to memorize lines. They don't stress about whether the first take is perfect. They yell, "Action." They watch the result. They say, "Cut, do it again." They do this 20, 30, maybe 50 times. They're not the creator in that moment. They're the selector. This is the shift you need to make right now. Stop acting like the lonely actor trying to give a perfect performance. Start acting like the director. Your job isn't to do the work. Your job is to judge the work. And because of AI, you can now run 50 takes in the time it used to take to prepare for one. But this feels wrong, doesn't it? You've been trained to believe speed kills quality. You think if you do something fast, you must be doing it poorly. Slow and steady wins the race, right? Wrong. In the age of AI, slow and steady just gets you replaced. Fast and iterative is safer, and the data backs it up in ways that surprised even the researchers. Here's what happened at Harvard Business School, and it changes everything. They ran a massive study with the Boston Consulting Group. These are high-level knowledge workers. They split consultants into two groups. Group A worked the old way, relying on their own deep focus and expertise. Group B used AI to iterate quickly. The results weren't just a little bit different, they were transformative. The group that used rapid iteration completed tasks 25.1% faster. That's a huge gain on its own. But here is the statistic that destroys the speed equals sloppiness argument. Their results were rated 40% higher in quality. Let that satisfying sink in. 25% faster, 40% better. Speed created quality. Why? Because the consultants weren't precious about their first attempt. They generated ideas instantly, critiqued them, fixed them, moved on. They weren't bogging down in the mud of perfectionism. They were surfing on top of the volume. This brings us to something I call the ceramics principle, and it explains exactly why this works. It comes from a famous parable about a pottery class. The teacher splits the class into two groups. The quantity group is graded solely on the weight of the pots they produce. 50 pounds of pots gets an A. The quality group is graded on producing only one pot, but it has to be perfect. So what happens? The quality group spends weeks theorizing. They study the clay. They plan the perfect aesthetic. They get paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake on their one big project. Meanwhile, the quantity group is just churning out pots. They're throwing clay, making mistakes, learning from them, and throwing more clay. At the end of the semester, a fascinating pattern emerged. The best pots, the absolute highest quality work, all came from the quantity group. Through sheer volume, they stumbled upon perfection. Through rapid looping, they learned the nuance of the material. The quality group produced mediocre work because they didn't iterate enough. Deep work creates the quality group trap. Rapid looping creates the quantity group advantage. So how do you actually do this? You need to change your metric for a successful day. Most people measure their day by hours of focus. I sat at my desk for 4 hours. That is a vanity metric. It tells you nothing about output. The new metric is velocity loops. How many iterations did you cycle through per hour? If you can loop through 10 versions of a newsletter, a code block, or a design in the time it takes a deep worker to sweat over one, you win, mathematically. Even if 90% of your loops are garbage, that one golden iteration will crush their single stressed-out attempt. This leads to a tactical rule you can use today. I call it the zero draft protocol, and it eliminates the biggest enemy of speed, the blank page. The blank page demands perfection. It screams, "Don't mess this up." So, ban the blank page. Make a rule that you are never allowed to write the first word of a document again. The moment you sit down, you generate a zero draft. You use voice-to-text to ramble your thoughts for 2 minutes. Or you have an LLM generate a messy C- version of what you need. Now you aren't creating from scratch. You are editing. You are fixing. Psychologically, it is infinitely easier to fix a bad draft than to create a perfect one. You shift from the pressure of the author to the power of the editor. You're instantly in the loop. And once you're in the loop, momentum takes over. Now, I know what a voice in the back of your head is saying. This feels like cheating. If I'm not suffering, am I really working? If I didn't write every word, is it really mine? We have been conditioned to believe that value comes from effort. We think that if we aren't sweating, we aren't adding value. But that is an industrial age hangover. Think about a carpenter. Is he cheating because he uses a power drill instead of a hand crank? Is an accountant cheating because they use Excel instead of long division? Of course not. You judge them on the cabinet they build, the audit they finish. Rapid looping is just the power drill for your brain. The market doesn't care how hard you worked. The market only cares about the value you delivered. If you can deliver better value faster by looping, you aren't cheating, you're evolving. And here is where you can take this to the next level. Don't just use this for creation, use it for critique. This is the roast my work loop. Usually, getting feedback is slow. You send a draft to a colleague, you wait 2 days. They send back a polite email because they don't want to hurt your feelings. It's slow and it's soft. With rapid looping, you can get brutal, honest feedback in seconds. Before you consider a task finished, feed it back into the machine. Tell it, "You are a senior editor. Roast this. Tell me exactly why this fails." It will tear your work apart, and that hurts. But it hurts for 10 seconds. Then you fix it. Then you do it again. You can run that feedback loop 5 times in 10 minutes. By the time you show your work to a human, it's already been battle-tested by a digital adversary. You look like a genius because you did the failing in private at high speed. The era of the solitary genius is over. You've romanticized the writer in the cabin for too long. That model works for a world that moves slowly, but your world doesn't move slowly anymore. The ground beneath your feet shifts every single day. New tools appear. New standards emerge. If you lock yourself away for 6 months to build the perfect thing, you might emerge to find out nobody wants it anymore. The feedback loop isn't just a productivity hack. It is a survival mechanism. It keeps you tethered to reality. It keeps you moving with the current, rather than trying to hold back the tide. So here's your challenge. Stop holding your breath. Productivity isn't about how long you can stay underwater. It's about how fast you can swim. Stop trying to optimize your focus. Start optimizing your speed. Stop trying to be the perfect creator. Start being the ruthless curator. The next time you feel that paralysis, that pressure to go deep, break the pattern. Throw some clay on the wheel. Make a mess. Do it fast. Do it again. Because the person who fails 10 times in the next hour, they're going to crush the person still trying to prepare for their first attempt. If you want to stay ahead of the curve while everyone else is still reading the old playbook, hit subscribe. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What is the one task you've been overthinking that you're going to rapid loop today? Let me know. I'll see you in the next one.